You're listening to The Vault, a Forum Communications podcast covering true crime and general intrigue in the upper Midwest. I'm Trisha Taurinskas, reading Murder of Minnesota Father and Daughter in 1904, deemed Shrouded in Impenetrable Mystery, written by Madelyn Haasken. Under the bold headline, Murdered for Money, a Bemidji Daily Pioneer story from June 8, 1904, broke the news that a father and daughter had gone missing from the tiny town of Quiring, Minnesota. N.O. and Agate Dahl, natives of Crookston, Minnesota, hadn't been seen since early April of that year. The elder Dahl had originally traveled to Quiring, just north of Black Duck, Minnesota, from Crookston to spend a few weeks visiting his daughter at her cabin. They had planned on heading back to Crookston together around the beginning of April. So when neighbors didn't see or hear from the pair, no one suspected anything malicious. But when the Dahl's mail started piling up at the Quiring post office, townspeople began to think otherwise. Rumors quickly arose that the Dahls were robbed and murdered, as N.O. was known for carrying large amounts of cash with him. Within the next couple of months, search parties were sent out to look for the father and daughter. Concerned Quiring residents searched high and low for the Dahls, to no avail. A small reward was offered in the case, which was later increased by county and state officials to about $1,500, in the hopes of motivating searchers or anyone who had information about the disappearance. Still, aided by thorough investigative efforts by search parties, local law enforcement, and even a detective with the Pinkerton National Detective Agency, no evidence of the Dahls was found. In a July 2, 1904 Pioneer story, it was announced that detectives had given up on the case. Though the investigation had stalled, rumors continued to circulate about the missing pair. Some townspeople believed that their bodies were sunk in a deep pond, and others added to that theory, saying that the theft of several axe heads from nearby logging camps could have been used to weigh down the bodies. But just as the hope of solving the case was fleeting, one of the Dahls was found. On July 26, 1904, the body of N.O. Dahl was discovered under the roots of a balsam tree near his daughter's cabin. A Pioneer story published the following day reported that the body was found by Eugene Caldwell and Owen French, two neighbors of the Dahls. Though search parties had previously searched the area, the pair stumbled upon the body by accident as they were searching for a cow that had wandered away from Caldwell's home. The elder Dahl's body was in a bad state of decomposition, and there was a large hole in the side of his head. At the time, the hole was speculated to have been from an axe, but the autopsy revealed that it was a gunshot wound, likely from a .30-30 caliber rifle. It was immediately suspected that N.O. had been murdered, and authorities posed the possibility that Agate was still alive and being held captive by her father's killer. Investigators were quick to name 3 suspects after N.O.'s body was found, the first being Caldwell, who was soon dismissed as having any connection to the murder. Another suspect was James Shorty Wesley, a laborer and lumberjack who had moved to Beltrami County in 1900 and lived with Caldwell. In the months following the disappearance of the Dahls, Wesley had also disappeared for more than a year, which led authorities to have suspicions about him. The third suspect was a Frenchman named Paul Fournier, who lived in Quiring and drew the attention of authorities because he had done jail time for robbery in the past. A Pioneer story reported that Fournier had a closed mouth and very shrewd demeanor that created an air of suspicion around him. At this time, search parties started going out in full force again in hopes of finding the second Dahl. Shortly after N.O.'s body was found, authorities located the first piece of evidence in the case, a small piece of lace from women's clothing, discovered at Fournier's cabin. Fournier defended himself, saying, that the lace was used to wrap around some butter that he had bought from a neighbor. It was also reported that a heap of ashes near Fournier's cabin had revealed a pile of bones, but it was undetermined whether or not they were human bones. Less than a month after Eno's body was unearthed from the roots of a balsam tree, his daughter's body was found. A Pioneer headline announcing the discovery of Agat's body read, "Most terrible crime ever committed in northern Minnesota, still shrouded in impenetrable mystery." Like the body of her father, Agat's remains were found by accident when a local man named Thomas Dewar was making hay on the Quiring postmaster's meadow, about a mile east of Agat's cabin. As Dewar was working, he discovered a shrew protruding from a pile of bush. He called to his wife, and when the couple pushed it back, they saw a leg. Dewar immediately contacted law enforcement. When authorities arrived at the scene, they found Agat's decomposed body. Her left leg was detached from her body, with some of the leg bones found 150 feet away. There was a hole in her chest, and her skull was fractured. With both bodies found, it became vital for authorities to lock down solid evidence in the case to connect their suspects to the crime. Just a few days after Agat's body was found, a piece of a man's shirt sleeve and a button were discovered near the scene. The fabric was matched to a shirt in Fournier's cabin, and the button was determined to be from a pair of his trousers. With the evidence stacking up against Fournier, most believed he committed the murders. Despite public opinion, though, authorities didn't think a scrap of lace, a shirt, and a button would be enough to convict him. As Fournier sat in jail awaiting his fate, his brother spoke out, telling authorities that Fournier likely had something to do with the killings. According to a September 22, 1904 Pioneer story, the brother said in a teary-eyed interview that Fournier was a wild boy who likely had a hand in the murder. Both Fournier and Wesley were formally charged with murdering the dolls. Wesley's trial was set for March 1907 in Bemidji, 3 years after the disappearance of the dolls broke the news. According to a Pioneer story covering the trial, Wesley remained calm and collected throughout his trial. The prosecution relied mainly on circumstantial evidence to convince jurors of Wesley's guilt, as there wasn't much physical evidence to connect him to the murders. One witness testimony revealed that Wesley had access to a rifle at the time of the doll's disappearance. Later, a long white hair was allegedly found on the rifle, and it was reported that no woman in that vicinity had white hair except Miss Doll. Another focus of the prosecutor's case was the fact that Wesley had disappeared once the doll investigation began, and wasn't found for more than a year when law enforcement was finally able to arrest him in Green Bay, Wisconsin. 2 men who were in jail with Wesley as he awaited trial also testified that Wesley confessed to robbing and murdering the dolls with the help of Fournier. As the trial came to an end, the jury took just 27 minutes to find him guilty. Guilty of murdering N.O. Doll, and he was sentenced to life in Stillwater Prison. Days after Wesley's verdict, Fournier's trial began. He was also found guilty of N.O.'s murder and sentenced to life in prison, but was granted a new trial on the grounds of prosecutorial misconduct. The new trial was held in Brainerd in 1907. In a twist, the jury acquitted Fournier of N.O.'s murder. In 1910, an Aitken jury also acquitted Fournier of Agat's murder after deliberating for just 23 minutes. Fournier's success in court was mainly due to his highly successful lawyer, Charles Scruchin, the first black lawyer to practice outside of Minneapolis. Though he was proclaimed innocent, most still believed Fournier was the true murderer of the dolls, or that he at least had a part in the killings. During one of his trials, testimony given by the wife of Fournier's brother alleged that Fournier admitted to the murders in her presence shortly after the dolls went missing. Fournier was officially off the hook for the doll murders, but it wouldn't be the last anyone heard of him. Paul Fournier was killed in Quiring in March 1912. Before his death, he made a shocking confession. Earlier in March, an argument broke out between Fournier and another Quiring man named George Sire over a financial issue. Fournier showed up at Sire's house one day, where Sire lived with his wife and daughter. After becoming enraged, Fournier pulled out a knife and threatened to kill Sire's wife. Fournier said, "I have killed 3 people and will kill 3 more right now." That's according to Sire's testimony in the court hearing. Sire then took a rifle off the wall and shot Fournier, killing him in what Sire claimed was self-defense. In court, it was ruled that Sire was justified in the shooting. A Pioneer story from March 15, 1912, detailed Sire's story about the incident and also discussed Fournier's past acquittal in the Dahl trials. He is said to have been subject to fits of intense anger, and that when in such a state, he became almost insane, the story said about Fournier. In his trial for the murder of the Dahls, he was not found guilty, but public opinion in this section generally held that he had committed the crime, and little sympathy has been expressed to date over his death. Unlock more cold cases and crimes from the past at inforum.news/try. Get your first 3 months of unlimited access to our entire news network for only 99 cents a month. Take advantage of this deal at inforum.news/try. Forum Communications is proud to be part of the Trust Project. Learn more at thetrustproject.org.